Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 113B.
I'm Cam, this is Julie.
Yes, this is the Haftarah discussion of this week's Torah portion, and it's found in 2 Samuel 2, 1 through 51. And like we mentioned in Cam's, it is long, and we're not going to go through the whole song, but it's the Song of David.
Yeah.
All right, so the reason that the sages picked this, obviously, is because this week is the Song of Moses, and there's so many aspects of David's song that kind of mimic Moses' song. You see the progression. Okay. It's all about the rock, the redemption,
right.
And it's all about the redemption at the end. And then it's all this turmoil in the middle. Basically, is what you see.
Life.
But what I love about this is, you were talking about the Song of Moses, and the Song of Moses goes through, okay, the rock, the redemption, and then you did all these abominable things. You did all this bad stuff. And then the redemption, right? But with David, he's like, I haven't done anything wrong. I have all these enemies, and they're besieging me, and the waves are crashing on me, and all these bad things are happening. And so I cried out to the Lord, and he came and rescued me, right? So you don't see but you did all these bad things, and we know David did. Yes?
Is it possible that I don't want my voice to see that. I'm trying
because it's morning. This is much earlier than what we usually do. I'm having the same problem.
Is it possible that David's song is showing from the side because, as we talked about last week with the Torah portion, that the dry and the green tree are all washed away together.
Okay.
That when times get so hard, this is what the righteous are going through.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And that was kind of where I was going with. This is once we're on the other side of the coin.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You're on this side of the coin for this one, but this is on the other side of the coin, those in Messiah. Because as you read through this song, it has so much to do with Messiah, but yet it's about David. Go figure. So let's talk about David. All right. David was a man of war. Mm-hmm. We all know that. From the time he was young and out in his father's field, he had no fear. That's the thing about David. He did not fear because he always knew, the Lord's going to deliver me.
Right.
Now, his brothers kind of saw this as an arrogant thing, but in the Lord's eyes, it was, no, he has that much faith and trust in me because he saw his heart. Right. And we see that back in 1 Samuel when Samuel's anointing him, Samuel's like, well, I don't understand. It's not this one, the very first one, the biggest one, the tall, the most valor, the one who could really lead Israel, because we had Saul, right? And it said Saul was taller than anybody else. He was from the smallest nation, but yet he was the tallest man.
Yeah,
it's kind of what it says.
Head over everybody.
Head over everybody else. So Samuel was looking for that same kind of thing. Right. And, Yahweh tells him when he's going to anoint the sons, he said, where he's going to anoint David, and he's looking at all the other sons, he said, see, you just see the physical. Yeah. I see the heart. Mm-hmm. And isn't that just my whole being was so excited when I heard that, because so many I grew up in church. I grew up in all kinds of different churches. And so much of it is what you look like on the outside. Yeah. How people look. Oh, well, they look like they would do good. They look like they would do good. And for the first time being in this, I don't know, I wanted to say congregation, but being where I'm at now, for the first time, see, I fell victim to that. I would look at people too and go, they look like a good leader. Oh, they look like they have it together. Yeah. But now I see people's hearts. And sometimes the ones who look like they have it together are the ugliest hearts. I don't want to look at it because I'm not really getting anything. I don't see that
hunger,
overwhelming hunger, yes, for the Lord and for truth. And those are the people that I'm drawn to. And I love how a lot of times it's not, it's not the ones you would think. Right. It's just not the people you think it's going to be. Right. That's a good way to put it. All right. So I had this thought. Yesterday I spent all day just going through David's life. Is what I did. I just started in 1 Samuel, and I just went through all the way to get me to this point, because this song is at the end of his life. Right. Well, hello. So much of it, you need to know the whole story to understand it. I know. Go figure. Yeah. But it's kind of like Messiah. You need to know all about his first coming to really understand.
You need to know all about what brought that Torah.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I can even go all the way back there, too. Yes. All right. So he came on the scene first. Well, when Samuel anointed him, but on the scene in front of Israel when he conquered the giants. Okay, when he conquered Goliath. Mm-hmm. That's the first time we see David. Recognition of who he is. And everybody wanted to know, whose son is he? Who is this man who had, and he had unwavering belief that because he was against God's ways,
Right.
God would deliver him into his hands because God was true to his word.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
David was walking in his word, had a heart after him. Now we're at the end of his life, and we see the very last thing that happens is David, that the Philistines, we see in 21:15, it says, and the Philistines were again fighting against Israel. So this constantly happened. But I love how it says we see it again, because we saw it at the very beginning.
Right.
All right. And yes, it happened a lot in between. But now we're seeing it again. And let me finish in 15. It says, so David and his servants with him went down and fought against the Philistines, and David was weary. Now, one of the descendants of Goliath came after David, wielded it, so he almost killed him. And it wasn't until Joab's brother came and killed the giant, David would have died there. So I find it interesting that he came into it fighting giants and came out of it fighting giants, because this was the last battle that we see before he wrote this song.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where we're at history-wise leading up to this song. So another interesting fact about the song and the Song of Moses is the Song of Moses was done at the end of Moses' life, which is why I asked, is this the last day?
Yes.
You know, and the Song of David was also done at the end of his life. And I find it also interesting that they went into the wilderness and went through all of what they went through because they wouldn't fight the giants.
Right.
And we're like bookends.
Well,
David's going
it's
the
that
other
circle
way.
again.
Yeah.
We just meet in bookends. Yeah.
And then Moses writes his song as they're going in to fight the giants. Yes, you have something to say? Yes.
Okay, so I just found this morning. I'm not saying that this is law. I'm just saying, isn't this interesting? When you read Revelation 15, where the song's being sung, and then you go and you read Revelation 21, there's this interesting hint in 21, and he says that he takes them to go see New Jerusalem, right? But he's very clear that no one's there. He's showing it before the bowls have happened.
Okay,
so all seven, the wrath hasn't even happened yet. He shows
right.
them. If you go back to 15, you see that there is no one is able to go into the throne room.
The throne room, right.
And excuse me, that's in 7. So it's between 7:15 and 21. But anyway, no one's allowed to go into it until the end of the bowls.
Okay.
Which means that in
Just like with
15, the
Moses.
Psalms is not until the end of all the tribulation. The end of all of that is when they would be singing that song going in. They're on the sea of glass, so they haven't gone in yet.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just puts it back at the end, which is always a question, because they talk about it in 7, and then they talk about it in 15, so you would think, oh, we are progressing.
But
the
not
truth
necessarily.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. That is interesting. Now, I have on my notes to talk about the 10 songs.
Okay.
And I know we touched on those. And I don't know. I know the source I got my songs they're a little bit different than yours. I don't know.
Well, I found that was just what Rabbi Shapiro had said.
Okay.
I'll be honest.
And I found mine from a different source. Yeah.
Well, I looked mine all up.
Okay.
And I was like, the one I couldn't find was Joshua's. However, then I found Moses and Joshua together, and then Joshua repeating the be courageous. I was like, oh.
All right. Well, I have all the verses to say where the songs are.
Okay.
All right. So we have the 10 songs, and they say that the first one was sung the night of Passover. And because it says in Isaiah, they sang a song, something like that, the night of Passover. Anyway, that's the only one I didn't write down the verse. The second one was at the Red Sea. That was Exodus 15. The third was at the well. That was Numbers 21:17. The fourth is the Song of Moses, which is 31:30, which
It's
I find
actually
interesting.
32.
Okay, 32.
That's where he says the word.
That's
I
where
want
it
you
says
to sing this song.
Right, but
the actual song
the
is
actual
32.
song's in 32. All right. Then you have Joshua, which Joshua sings, and that's 10:12.
That's one I couldn't find. I'm like, where the heck is that? I know it's Joshua, but okay, so I didn't. That's the one I couldn't
Joshua
figure out.
10:12.
Okay.
All right, and then you have Deborah and Barak, and
that's
that's in Judges 5:1. Then you have the Song of David. That's obviously 2 Samuel 22. Then Solomon on the day of dedication in the temple.
Right.
We know that from Psalm 31. Then we have the Song of Jehoshaphat.
Okay. Yeah,
which
he
is
does go out and
Second
sing.
Chronicles 20:21. And so, well, in Isaiah 42:10, we see that we're going to sing the Lord a new song, is what it says. And we know that from, like we talked about, from Revelation. And, yeah.
And new song is the same idea as new covenant. It's not completely new.
It's just renewed.
It's adding on and renewing. He's adding on the little part that's needed to keep it progressing.
Yeah.
New song.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so when David starts his song, he gives the Lord 10 names. All right, so it says, and he said, Yahweh is my rock and my stronghold and my deliverer, my Elohim, my rock. Now, those two rocks, those are two different words. Now, I didn't write them down in the Hebrew. You can go look those up, but because I didn't think I would have time. But those are two different words, Hebrew words for rock. I take refuge in him, so he's his refuge. The shield, the horn of deliverance, my high tower, and my refuge. Again, a different word. My Savior, you save me from violence. I call on Yahweh, the one to be praised. And then 7 through 16 is a perfect example of theophany. Which is, when a poetic way of describing how the Lord comes down from heaven to do something here on earth. Yes. So 7 through 16 is all about David crying out to him. So what you're seeing is, imagine the Lord on his throne. David cries out to him, and he says, that's David's voice. He doesn't even wait for his chariot. He hops on a cherub, and he comes down to the earth. He dispels the enemies with his nostrils. You have a lot of David being overwhelmed by waves and the sea, and him splitting the sea with his nostrils. And you have a lot of things that look like the song what the children of Israel went through all through the Torah, which is really kind of interesting.
And again, in Revelation, that last song with chapter 15, they're on the sea, but the sea is now back together. As
on
one.
The heavenly sea.
Right.
Yes.
Back together as one.
Yeah. I didn't want them to think they were on the earthly sea. They're not on the Red Sea.
Yeah.
They're on
not
the heavenly
walking
sea.
on water.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, so when Yeshua walked on water, he was giving a foreshadowing of the heavenly sea.
Interesting. Yeah. Because they were standing on it.
And Peter doing it while he was looking at
Show
Messiah
that
showed that he too will be walking on that sea.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. Let's look at verse 17. It says, he sent from above, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. Here we're talking about, when you look at the word waters in scripture, it's idiomatic of peoples.
Yeah, the nations.
So the nations. So here we have, he's drawing David out of many waters, or Messiah. This is hooking with us, that male figure, I believe, of Israel, that right now we're scattered among the nations, and he will be drawing us out as we're going through these things.
Right. So another thing you're talking about drawing out, it just made me think of towards the end, Messiah's being drawn out of the nations because he's been so, can you say Greekized? Greekanized, that the Lord's now pulling him back out of the nations to be the Hebrew that he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah.
How many of us coming into Torah are now seeing him completely different than we ever saw him before?
Yeah.
Or I don't even know how I saw him before, to be honest
I know,
with you.
it's funny. It's like,
because now I've learned Torah. It's just, I guess it's like I knew of him before.
Yeah.
Now I can see him.
Great way to put it.
Wow, I've heard about you, but now I actually see you in action. I see.
Yes. Oh, I like that.
See you. Instead of just hear about you. But both, you need the hearing first.
Right.
Faith comes by hearing.
That's the only way you're going to recognize him when he comes.
Right. And then you do.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so let's look at 26. This is that interesting verse that we're always looking for.
Okay.
Because this song is also in the Psalm 18. It says, with the loving commitment ones, you show yourself lovingly committed. With the perfect one, you show yourself perfect. With the clean, you show yourself clean. And with the crooked, you show yourself twisted. For you save the humble people, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them low. So basically, he's saying it's like measure for measure.
Right.
If you just kind of know about him a little bit, then he just kind of knows about you a little bit. It made me understand Matthew 7 a little bit better when you have all these people saying, but I did all this stuff in your name. And he's like, I don't know you. I've never seen you.
Right.
You know, he doesn't say that, but, you know,
Right.
it's that whole idea.
Right.
He's like,
You've twisted.
Yeah.
You've seen the part of me you wanted to because you didn't want to accept the
Right.
whole. You know that this is actually also in Deuteronomy 32, the twisting. Deuteronomy 32:5.
uh-huh.
It's just interesting that it's all the way through. He's also like, you know, you twisted, you didn't
Right,
walk it
right.
And
Right. So we need to be
too.
very careful because if we present him twisted, then he'll appear twisted.
Right.
If we see him righteously, then he appears righteous. And it also makes sense why to the 7 churches he's revealing himself in a different way.
Yeah, the way that they are looking for him.
Well, they should.
Right.
It's almost like in the way that they've twisted it. For some of them, for 2 of them, there's nothing bad said, so they're
Right.
not twisting it. But you know, I don't know. I just find that interesting that maybe that's a hint.
He's revealing who he really is and how they've twisted it.
Right. Okay, I have one more thing that I want to talk about, and that's in verse 44, and it says, "And you deliver me from the strivings of my people." This is Messiah and the body, all right?
Yeah.
"You safeguard me as the head of the nations. A people I have not known serve me. Sons of the foreigner submit to me. As soon as they hear, they obey me." And I thought, that is so happening right now.
Yeah, it
and this
is.
is at the end of his song.
Yeah.
The end of David's song, he goes through all of this, and then all of a sudden you see all these people from the nations hearing about him. And as soon as they hear, they're like, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And I thought, how many people start learning Torah and they're like, I don't even want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I just don't even want to do that. You know, there are some things we still have to battle over our
Yeah,
flesh.
but we're still-
you know,
but we still say yes.
We still say yes.
That's why we start the
Yes.
journey of battling
So
our flesh.
immediately when we hear, we're submitting.
Yeah.
And it just goes on about bringing the people under him and
So
bringing him out from the enemies and then subduing all the nations. Because in David's life, that's what he did.
Right.
First, he subdued Saul's house for the throne. Then Jerusalem, he got it back from the Jebusites, from the enemy. Then he was constantly battling all of the nations and subduing them.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Messiah is going
Right.
to do. Right? First, he's got to take his identity back from
Right.
Saul.
Right.
The way Saul's been presenting himself
Right.
to the nations, you know, and metaphorically speaking.
Yes.
Then he's got to take Jerusalem when
Right.
he comes, and then he'll subdue all the nations.
Right.
I just thought, you know, wow, their lives really are parallel. Okay, this is the one last thought, I promise. Just something to think about. So I was starting to think, okay, so Messiah's life really does kind of parallel David's. That's why David could write about himself.
Right.
And we can
And-
look and say, oh, that's Messiah. So let's think about this. So,
well, and he's son of David.
yeah.
You know, so
I would almost bet that David was 12 years old when he fought Goliath.
Oh, I would not argue that at all.
Because that's the first time we see Yeshua show up in the temple. Those were the spiritual giants. And he was
I like that.
he was
And-
conquering that.
And if you remember that David was taking lunch to his brothers every day.
Yeah.
So he's lunch boy.
Yeah.
So I can see a 12-year-old
He's feeding. He's feeding from his sheep his brothers.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
I can
The
see
cheese,
that's what he's doing.
Giving the wool, giving it.
Yeah.
It says from his sheep. He's giving. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just thought. I bet he was 12 years old, just like Yeshua.
That would be so cool.
And then I thought that's probably why we see Yeshua with this odd story. Just
About
at the
12,
beginning,
yeah.
Being 12
Going
years
to
old and
the-
going
yeah.
to his father's house, and we've made all kinds of judgments about that. But I thought fighting that spiritual giant.
Well, okay, so on that same line, Yeshua at 12 went to go about his father's business,
Yes.
right? Okay, so I learned this from Dr. Dye and the study of language. So shepherds were always understood to be kings.
Okay. Shepherd.
So David's
Yes,
a shepherd,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So if that's the case, at 12, he's going to start going about his role as
Right.
king, which is to conquer the giant. And that's when he's recognized by
Right.
the king for things he's doing that no one else would do. Oh my gosh, I mean, it really fits perfectly.
And what I love is Yeshua came and did. I'm not trying to spiritualize Yeshua, but everything he did had spiritual ramifications. That's why the demons
Well,
were the only
right.
ones that were like, we know who you are. You know, everything he did was conquering. Like David did it in the physical, we see Yeshua doing it spiritually.
And I would say Yeshua, instead of, I'll just kind of play with your language, instead of he did it spiritually, Yeshua transcended all the dimensions. Therefore, what he did went through all 10 or 12 dimensions and had impact. So while he was still on earth doing the physical, it also penetrated the spiritual.
Right.
So allowing that to be one. It wasn't that he just did stuff there. It's that he brought those two together.
Right. But he still
going
has
through all
not
of
done the physical yet.
Right, he hasn't completed it all.
That's
Absolutely.
what I'm saying.
He hasn't reigned, hasn't done that. Right.
When he came, you see him doing the things David did,
Right.
but more in a spiritual sense. And then when he comes again, it will be all those dimensions.
Right. He was setting that foundation.
Yes.
So that when he pulled down, everything would just come down.
Right. Because you got to do it there, so you have the authority to do it here.
Right.
You know. All right. Well, it was great this week. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you again. I'm not sure when. And we hope you have a fantastic week. Shalom.